All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Kubernetes Cluster API Azure Office Hours. We do this every Thursday at this time. It's February 1st, 2024. As you probably know, CapZ is a subproject of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and therefore we try to abide by the Kubernetes community rules of conduct, which basically boil down here to try not to interrupt each other. Let's try to use the raise hand feature and everybody be nice to each other. We don't generally have any problems in this area, but just to get through the boilerplate that we usually say. If you wouldn't mind adding your name to the attendees list, that's kind of helpful to know who's been here and who might have asked a question or something. This is also the time if anybody wants to introduce themselves. If you're here for the first time or haven't been here in a while and you want to say what's up and what you're doing, that'd be great. So I'll be quiet for a minute. And if anybody wants to unmute, just go for it.
Hey everyone, my name is David. I'm working for a company called Porter that is a platform as a service company, and we have been helping people provision Azure clusters with CapC.
Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for coming, David.
Hello, I'm Malcolm from Giant Swarm. We are provisioning Kubernetes clusters on different providers. And also we are users of CapC, and I will use case for the meeting today. So I'm here.
Cool. Erkan, is that your name? Thank you. Thanks for coming. All right. Maybe we can move on to the open discussion. Is actually we kind of skip over the recurring topics, or we actually have handled those. Oh yeah, if you want to add your name to the list. All right, we already said that. Sorry, I'm waking up here. And then we actually tend to do these things at the end. So for open discussion, Erkan, you have the first topic. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, basically we are trying to provision private clusters on Azure, and when we set the load balancer type as internal for the private clusters, CapC creates a private DNS zone automatically. We have some operators for them to create public DNS zones as well, but since CapC creates the private DNS zone, the records are not accessible from the workload clusters, and it blocks certificate signing. We are not able to use Let's Encrypt for certificates. So actually, we found a way to solve this as a workaround, but having the private DNS zone is problematic if you want to expose the records publicly. So I checked Kappa, and they don't have any kind of DNS feature at all. My question is, is it possible to implement a feature that allows users to disable the whole DNS functionality so that they can create whatever they work for you? What do you think about that?
Do you have any comments? I don't really know the details. This seems like it would be reasonable, but then would you need to bring your own? Would the idea be you'd already created a zone for that, or you just dump everything in the public area instead of?
Actually, my expectation is just I expect CapC to not create anything for me regarding DNS, and I will take care of the whole DNS part. And in my case, we will create public one, but in some case we can use some other methods. But I need to have the flexibility. That's.
Mm-hmm. On the face of it, it doesn't sound. It sounds like something we could probably support, but I'm sure I'm missing some details.
Maybe I should add another point. For example, we use external DNS to sync the DNS records for ingress objects, and now I have to use two external DNS, one for public, one for private. Because otherwise, as I said, the private DNS zone overrides the public one, and you are not able to access the public records from the cluster itself. So it is problematic in other use cases too.
Yeah.
If you are okay about this one, we can create a ticket issue to explain the stuff, our use case, our solutions, and also we can open a PR to start a discussion. But I just want to get your opinions at first.
Well, as one of the maintainers, I don't hear anything so far that sounds like this would be problematic. On the other hand, once you actually start doing the PR, we might find there's something there. Does anyone else think this is a bad idea? Yeah, I would say go for it. We'd love to see an issue in PR. Nawaz?
Yeah, I'd also say that, yeah, please go for it. Probably we can have a better discussion, more informed one on a issue or a PR if you already are working on it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
That'd be great. Cool. Thanks for bringing that up. We're always motivated when there's a specific thing to fix that's going to enable a customer. So we will be sure to check it out as soon as you create an issue or the PR. Unless there's anything else on that, we can move on to John has a demo and update about AKS features, our favorite topic.
Yep. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, before yesterday, the proposal was leaning toward option 8, which relies on users defining their own ASO managed cluster and then making all the updates to that afterwards. And I tried that out and hit a snag that I think disqualifies that option. So I updated the proposal with that in the doc and added a comment with a little more context. I can find a link to that later if people are interested in that. But before that, option 7 was the previous runner-up, I think. And that's to add a new field to the CABZ API, which defines patches to the ASO resources. So I have a POC of that up and running, and I can create a cluster with whatever AKS features are available in ASO. So that does seem pretty promising. So I wanted to show a little bit of that just to give a better idea of how that actually looks in practice. So I will go ahead and share my screen. All right. So to show what I have, so I do have a cluster up and running right now, and this is the CABZ Azure Managed Control Plane. And in the spec, we have a new Managed Cluster Patches field, which defines this is basically just going to get thrown straight into the ASO resource when CABZ generates what its view of the ASO resource should be. So this basically turns on Cilium for the ASO cluster, and that's not something that you can turn on with any other CABZ fields. So just to show that that actually is set. So this is on the actual ASO resource, getting that spec network profile, network data plane, it is set to Cilium. So that's pretty cool. And then the other cool part about this is that, like everything else, these patches get applied dynamically. So if I just show what the labels are for the ASO resource, then I will edit the patches in the CABZ resource to add a new label. and then that label gets applied to the ASO resource. So that's also pretty cool. And then just to show that this is kind of an advanced feature that it's very easy to get creative in ways that break things. So for example, if I edit the patches again and try to change something kind of gnarly, like the API version of the ASO resource, that is going to break your CABZ Azure Managed Control Plane. So this is just to show that you probably don't want to be using this unless you really know what you're doing. So overall, this is meant to be and remain kind of a hack with very few guardrails baked in. So if we do intend to move forward with this, we would still plan to implement more AKS features kind of the way we have been in the past. And this would be kind of the break glass way of kind of adding in features that you need right now. And you can't wait for CABZ to implement those kind of as first class with extra validation and defaulting and other handy things like that. So I updated the tentative decision in the proposal to go with this option for now while we continue to look into this. And I do have a PR open with this code in, so please try that out if you're interested. So yeah, that was all I wanted to show. Does anybody have any questions? Matt?
That's pretty cool. Especially that we have one thing that works. But so if you do manage to shoot yourself in the foot by putting some bogus patch YAML in there, can you repair things by just clearing out the patches field? Is that going to sort of reset to vanilla AKS?
Yeah, so like if I want to, like I can just remove this and it does fix itself.
Yeah, okay.
The
That's
other, yeah, the other kind of clunky thing is if you want to remove this label, for example, you have to set this to null, but then you kind of have this patch in here for just kind of a null thing, which is a little bit annoying.
Hmm.
I wanted to
Just
show
for
the
labels, because
labels.
that's kind of how they behave, right? Other things like adding to the spec here, you just remove that stanza and it'll clear it out.
Right, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
Do we like how does somebody find out that they're like what's the experience for somebody if they put some patches in and then it causes an error? How do they get that feedback?
Yeah, so you would see that the ready condition goes to false in the Azure Managed Control Plane, so it's still exposed in the same place as any other runtime errors in CABZ, and that would also get logged in the controller manager log in the controller manager logs too. So I don't think any of those errors would be like in particular more hidden than other ones.
Cool. This looks awesome.
Any other questions or comments? AKS leading edge? All right. I guess I will reshare screen if I can figure out how to do that. Share screen. This will stop other screen sharing, yes. Okay. That's all that we had on the agenda. Unless someone has something you want to add at the last minute, which would be fine. Otherwise, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I thought I added something to the agenda, but it might have been on the wrong day. Yeah, it might have been for last week. I was just gonna talk about like the Yeah, I added it
Oh,
on
here we go.
last week.
Let's just move it.
Yeah, so I guess I was gonna ask John or anybody else. I know like we were stuck on the auto upgrade channel PR, trying to move that forward for a while. And I guess after a while I felt kind of bad for the person, right? Because they had to rebase a lot of times, and you know we ended up like going through several rounds of comments, and I think I saw like John canceled the approval because stuff changed. So I guess I'm wondering what would be a better strategy going forward, because I think if we kind of, you know, keep making them go back to this PR and holding it up, it kind of leaves a bad taste in contributor's mouth. Kind of like when I was trying to push the machine pool machines PR forward. David, go ahead.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. I mean, I do think in general with the timing of the PRs from this contributor, it was kind of unfortunate because we kind of we rebased everything onto ASO. So that was one thing. Yeah, and I know we did try to offer to help with the rebase side of things because of that. So there's that. But how do we fix it moving forward? One of the small things I would just say is, you know, maybe having an explicit kind of minimum bar of code review, you know, because sometimes I feel like it's possible we get hung up on like little nits, like, oh, could this comment be here or that thing be there? And then it's like, and then it delays everything, you know, like for weeks. So I think being selective on what we really want to block on versus just kind of call out, I think that's really important as a rule of thumb. The other thing that I think would be really helpful for a contributor experience is actually having kind of maybe a guide of sorts for how to contribute a new feature, especially with everything that we've had with all the ASO changes, which should make things easier. You know, I know Willie just pumped out like a new feature in like a few days. Now, obviously, Willie is very knowledgeable, been doing this a long time. But that said, I think there could be a lot of mileage had of getting maybe a more end-to-end guide of the things you do to just add a new feature, let's say to AKS, using like ASO as a baseline, right? Because I feel like that's where a lot of the feature requests are coming in. And if people kind of follow that, that might accelerate them and help them out. So those are a few things. I'll stop now.
Yeah, I also had an idea. I'm not sure if Jack is here, but we were talking about contributor stuff, and what he was saying was sort of you can't like expect everybody to do things exactly the way you want them, because you know you're not paying them and they're kind of doing this as you know of their own free will. So in terms of like non-blocking stuff, I would be fine with like if this seems like this person has been, you know, putting in a lot of effort, there's still stuff we'd like to clean up. Just say, okay, you know, you've been at it for a while, we'll just land this and I'll like make a follow-up PR with whatever small things we need. So that way they can sort of get the satisfaction, feel like, you know, this is a good experience, not like, oh, these guys are like extremely pedantic. I think for that PR there was a lot of things where like the doc comments for the Kubernetes fields or the API fields weren't formatted consistently, and you know like that's not a huge deal, but yeah, I think like if it was say 90% of the way there for most things, I'm cool with saying that on a case by case basis, we'll just merge what you have and then follow up and sort of take care of it ourselves. Willie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like when I was like working on cluster class support in Cappy, like my PR merged, but there were actually like a lot of things that the maintainers wanted to like fix, but they just decided to like merge it and then like create a follow-up PR, and that was like probably just faster for both me and them. Just so it's like So I think that's something we could probably prioritize going forward instead of making the PR like perfect. I think, yeah, just adding on to what you said, Matt.
Yeah, thanks. I don't maybe have that much to add, but I'm glad you brought this up, Jonathan, because it seems like it's important for us to recognize early on that a PR is going to take more time and we need to invest more time in it. And I think we actually kind of did that with these, but they turned out to be tricky. And then, like David was saying, we sort of rebased the world underneath it. But maybe one thing that can help is very often there's a lot of, I think we should maintain our high standards on documentation and stuff, you know, on comments and all that. It can seem very ticky-tack, but ideally we, you know, there are some standards there. But if you can review like all the documentation related changes in one pass, ideally, then people can get that out of the way, because it is super frustrating when the code is all working and someone comes in there. Very often I'm that person, and I'm like, this comment needs a period at the end, and that's, you know, that's lame. But ideally, we keep the same standards for all PRs, or we allow ourselves to do a little follow on if all the stuff is ticky tack, and like Willie said, that also works out. Jonathan.
Yeah. So I think like, you know, when you look at a PR, you can kind of tell like if it's like this person like doesn't really know what they're doing, and this is gonna like I'm gonna have to invest quite a lot into sort of explaining how to do this. And in that case, yeah, definitely I would say, you know, keep working with them. On the yeah, I think on the ticky tack stuff or whatever, I'd say like if it's like an experienced contributor, whether it's in Microsoft or not, I'd say, you know, definitely hold the PR to maintain these standards. But if it's a new contributor, I think we could, and it's been open for a while, I think we could let that slide on occasion. And the other thing with rebase is at least like for the cap H stuff that I've been working on, I try to I've been trying to like let other people's PRs merge first, and then I'll rebase off of them to sort of accept that burden in the event that like it'll be a pretty big rebase. And I think that's something we could also consider as well. Like for that one, maybe like land a PR and then we'll rebase it to ASO ourselves. Just that's another option I was thinking. But yeah, anyone else, any other thoughts? I guess I guess that I can wrap it up for now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any easy answers here, but I think it's important you brought it up.
Yeah, I don't think we can really have an action item necessarily.
Yeah.
Sort of keep that in mind, and maybe in like the, or maybe here's one, like in like the comments part of a review for the whole review, when you leave a comment, you know, be explicit about if this is blocking or if this is more like a like to have.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I feel like hopefully you guys agree, CAPC has really good velocity overall, and we attend to most PRs, but then there are some that kind of get stuck. And it's not always the contributor's fault. Sometimes we could maybe move it along, like you were saying.
Yeah, I think like Jack brought it up a while back too, where it's, you know, for a new contributor, it's not necessarily about like the quality of the code to the highest, being at the highest standards, but like building that relationship between the new contributor and the existing reviewers, so that, you know, they'll because I know that the longer they keep at it, they'll get better at contributing and stuff. So maybe don't sweat it too much when someone's coming.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments on this? David wrote down some action items in chat. Thank you. All right. Well, unless anyone else has another discussion topic, this is where we usually pivot over to checking out our bug list or doing milestone review. That may not be very interesting to you, so if you don't want to go all inside baseball with us, please feel free to drop off. Otherwise, what should we do? Gang, bugs, milestone review, or PI
David,
triage?
David Townley has a
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
hand
ahead,
up.
David. I wasn't looking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one general question. I'm not sure if this is the right forum for it, but I'm trying to upgrade my CAPC version from 1.84 to 1.13, and I'm just wondering like how best practices for doing so. I've sort of done some tests locally, and I mean, noticed one breaking change, which was at least it seems to me like the default secret key that's used for the service principal has changed. So that's not a big deal. I can fix that. But then after making the upgrade and then actually updating an existing cluster that was provisioned with 1.8.4, and then also provisioning new clusters, I'm running into an issue where my managed machine pools have like a ready status that is not accepted. I can post these errors like in the Slack or somewhere where you don't even remember it right here. But I'm just sort of wondering like when I'm going about this upgrade, should I be going one version at a time? Is there a place somewhere where I can track sort of known issues between upgrades? And generally, how careful should I be about this?
Anybody want to take a stab at that? Well, as you discovered, we don't test upgrading that big a span, but I think what we have encapsulated in the E2E in our upgrade tests are the supported versions. So I think effectively that means 2 versions are being tested and therefore ought to work all the time. I don't know if we actually have any specific docs about this, but thinking about it, I think the idea is you would want to upgrade no more than 2 minor versions at a time. So you'd probably have to do a couple upgrades here. Yeah, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms of what we test, the only testing like the latest 2 versions, that's a fairly recent thing. Before that, we were testing upgrades from 1.0 to the latest version of CAPZ. So that might seem like it should cover everything, but there were things that we found were missing in those tests where like upgrading a feature added in 1.11, upgrading to 1.12, there would be some upgrade error where we wouldn't be able to test that if we were starting with 1.0. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not testing your specific upgrade path. But I think the intent is that upgrading from any 1.0 version to the newest CAPZ version should work. But I think there are practical reasons where we might say that specific issues aren't going to be fixed, but this seems like something on the surface that I think we probably should look into if it's like a consistent thing.
Got it. I'll probably just make a thread in the Slack with the things I'm running into, and we can just touch base there. So would that mean though, Matt, what you were saying about jumping 2 versions, like I guess I'll just try that and see if that cleans things up. Like would the CRDs, would you basically fill in like missing values that are not backwards or forwards compatible? Like one high level one I wonder about is the the managed control plane tier, like it changed from paid to standard, or I think the string there. So like, does that get changed when I flip over, or do I then have to manually repair it?
John, you want to answer?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that that should fix itself. I think the value in the CAPZ CRD will stay the same, but then like the actual API call we make it'll change the standard paid whatever stuff kind of transparently. So I think we do have specific logic. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Well, I was just gonna say, but the webhook would reject the old version for future like applies.
The webhook should still accept the old Azure accepted values.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in general, we have migration code that should recognize things like that and either be more tolerant of both values in the future or migrate from one to the other. But you know, should is such a wonderful word. And obviously you found some of the problems there. And John's right in that we, up until recently, had the intent to test from 1.0 all the way through. We don't necessarily do that anymore. So I was just thinking the safest path, it sounds like to me, would be to upgrade maybe not one version at a time, but not more than two versions at a time. On the other hand, it's entirely likely that you might run into these same errors because we just haven't specifically tested for them, but probably should. So yeah, if you could summarize your findings and stuff in a Slack thread or on a GitHub issue, it sounds like stuff we probably want to fix in general. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and the last thing I would add is that kind of doing the iterative upgrades would at least help us debug and figure out kind of where things are going wrong. So kind of like manual git bisect.
Sure. All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, do we want to pop over and look at the bug list or do milestone review? The milestone? Let's do that unless someone else has a stronger opinion. We have a little over a month and a half. Got through about a third of the things on the list. I guess I will just do the slow scroll, and if people want to offer any details, we've been talking about this one already at the meeting. This I will work on. Ditto. I wonder if any of us is going to pick this up because I'm pretty sure Ashutosh is not going to. This merged, I think. Oops. Yes. So the blocker to continuing this is gone. So, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. So this is available again. We should probably either formally punt it or have one of us take over the PR or the issue. All right, I will keep going. Does anybody have any status they want to volunteer here? We've been pretty good about keeping this up to date. Seems like no. Do we want to call it good, or does anybody want to go through the bugs or the PR triage board? I am not seeing a lot of enthusiasm. Let's say let's call it a meeting. All right. Thanks everybody for coming. Hopefully we'll see you again next Thursday. Have a good rest of the week.
Thanks, Matt.